Well, the Appalachian Trail has been irrevocably changed for now and for the future. It's not going to look the same as it ever has before, and that's okay. So today we're going to talk about what kind of changes the class of 2025 and all hikers, whether you be a through hiker, section hiker, day hiker, what you can expect in the damaged areas from Hurricane Helene, and even some issues that have occurred before Hurricane Helene happened. So first off, this is not about doom and gloom. This is just simply about what has changed on the trail, and that's okay. The trail always changes. It doesn't always change this drastically, this quickly, but the trail has changed, and you just need to prepare yourself as you go out there. And one of the things it's going to be is when you get on trail, the pictures that you see on social media, and of course you didn't see it very long in the news because the news cycle is so short, but the pictures that you see on a screen are not the same as seeing it in person. It is shocking when you go out there and see it, and it's really a little overwhelming, and your mind can't comprehend it, how much damage there is out there. But it is going to be hikeable. You're going to be able to get out there in the woods, and if you were planning a trip on September 1 of 2024 for 2025, then you still need to be planning on taking that trip. So let's talk about some things that have changed out there. So to begin with, obviously the trees. That's the biggest thing about the trail, and the damage that was caused was by the falling of all the trees. So the trees in a lot of places are just simply gone, or not gone. They're still there. They're just laying horizontal instead of vertical. And in some cases, they're kind of laying at angles, which makes them even more dangerous because they could try to become horizontal, and they might do that as you walk right under them. So that's very dangerous out there. So that's one thing you're going to have to do in 2025 is keep your head on a swivel when you go through these areas that have been damaged out there. So along with the trees, the landscape has been changed forever. So when the tree falls, obviously the trail is going to look different, but you've got things like where a root ball came up, there was a trail walking around that tree that now that trail is vertical. So you're going to be walking around root balls, and there's not a lot you can do with the root ball. You can certainly carve it back and cut it back a little bit, but you are going to see a lot of root balls out there. So just prepare yourself for that. The pictures that you see on the Far Out, the Far Out app that you may use to navigate by, that you may use to look at on your phone and go, yep, I am right here because I recognize this on Far Out. Those pictures, in a lot of cases, and we're just talking about the area now from Hurricane Helene, they are not going to match. And so it's not going to look the same. So Far Out's going to have to do some updating to begin with. But you're going to have to look at those pictures and determine, okay, I am at this place. Here is the road crossing, and it looks similar to it. So just understand that it is not going to look the same. You've got some footbridges that are probably going to be out. Right now, they have not had a chance to get back in to all the backcountry and look at those footbridges because you can't get access to begin with, and you can't get access for the logs and everything, and their trees are in the way, but also because the Pisgah is still closed. Don't know why everybody else is open, but Pisgah is closed. There are hikers that are getting through. They're having to do a lot of bushwhacking, and they're going through closed sections. I don't recommend that, but there are sections that are closed that are perfectly hikeable. So I don't know why they're still closed, and this is just in the Pisgah National Forest. So because those footbridges are out, particularly larger ones, if they're out, you're going to have to be doing some fords out there. Now, that's not unusual to do a river ford or a creek ford. However, that's going to be a little more dangerous when it comes to high waters, and you're going to have to just be cognizant of that, knowing that that bridge that you're looking at on Far Out, it may be out. Now, you'll know ahead of time because Far Out's going to get updated. You're going to be updated through social media like me. You're going to be updated through the ATC on things that the bridges are washed out, so you'll know where the fords are when you get, or the new fords are, as well as the already existing fords when you get through there. And because there was so much water moving through the woods and through the creeks, the bog boards that are in place, some of those bog boards may be gone. So they may not be able to be replaced by the time you get there. So you may be thinking you're walking through North Carolina, Tennessee, and you may feel like you're in Vermud because you'll be walking through the mud because the bog boards are gone. So far, the bog boards I've seen out there have not been gone. They have been there, but undoubtedly there will be some that will probably be gone. One of the biggest things is shelter damage. So you can expect there to be some shelter damage. We're going to talk about the shelters that are damaged in a little bit, but right now, just understand that we haven't been able to get out and see all the shelters that are out there. We know that some are damaged, but we haven't been able to get through to all of them yet. So right now, trail maintainers are trying to punch their way through to find out the condition of those shelters that are deep in the forest. And so we're going to be looking for that. Another thing is campsites. So because trees are falling everywhere, a lot of campsites are obviously in the middle of trees, and these are, primitive campsites that are not around shelters, that are somewhere, away from shelters there. And these, if you've hiked any of the trail at all, they're right there next to the trail. So these campsites, some of them call them stealth campsites. These campsites, a lot of these are not going to be accessible because the trees are gone. The trees are all falling down around them. And right now, the main focus is getting the trail cleared enough to have a continuous footpath. So they're not making it pretty, not up to the normal standards. That will come later. But right now, they're just trying to get the trail open. And so they're probably not worried about cutting around campsites right now. Once they do, there'll be plenty of wood there for you to burn for campsites. We're going to talk about burning wood here in just a minute as well. That's going to be really important. Now, so the campsites are not going to be, some of those aren't going to be available, and some of them will be smaller. And also the unavailability or the smaller campsite is going to make some of those crowded. So just keep that in mind out there. Have patience with each other. Just understand that it may be miles to the next campsite and you don't know if that campsite's existing or not. Hopefully people will post on Far Out and leave a comment, and then that way people will be able to see that and make better planning. However, just understand that you may not be able to get to that campsite, and it may not be fully accessible like it was before. So what else? We've got Forest Service bridges and Forest Service roads that are probably not going to be rebuilt yet. So right now, the National Forest Service is spending a lot of time trying to clear their roads, trying to make repairs to those as opposed to actually sawing the trail. They do have a limited amount of crews out there doing that, but mainly their focus is getting those fire roads, getting that access into the backcountry that they need for fighting fires, for emergency situations, getting those accessible. So that's what they're doing right now. And there are going to be some bridges that were out that were road bridges for the National Forest Service, and it's going to take some time to get those bridges put back together. And like I just said, because those roads and bridges are out and areas not accessible, you cannot expect to have emergency services everywhere back in the wilderness in those areas that you had it before. So they're not going to be able to get to you quickly. In some cases, they may not be able to get to you at all. So keep that in mind. Plan accordingly. Be more careful. Keep your head on a swivel. Be more cautious. You may not be able to get out. That's also going to limit, because some of these roads will be cut off, that's also going to be able to limit your bailout points in case you get hurt, or in case you just get tired of hiking, or in case there's a storm coming up. You may not be able to get out. So you're going to have to do a little more planning about where you bail out in those situations. In some situations, the treadway is going to be relocated. Now, it may only be relocated for a couple feet because because it's going over a root ball, now it's vertical. So it may just have to go around that root ball, and you're going to be doing a lot of going around root balls. Or it may be relocated a considerable distance away, maybe a mile or more or half mile or more from where it was located, because that portion of the trail is no longer accessible. So I can see places like where up on the creeper trail, where the creeper trail is closed and it may not be accessible, then they may, the trestle that the AT went across, it may be gone now. The creeper trail lost a majority of the trestles up there. So if it's gone, they may very well reroute you on a roadway somewhere. And the ATC right now is working on that, along with the trail maintainers, trying to figure out how they can have a continuous footpath. And that is their goal, to do that. That may mean there will be more road walks than there are currently. However, their goal is to make those road walks as short and as safe as possible. They'll have to be, because the trail gets relocated, there's going to have to be more maintenance done on those places where it is being relocated to. So we don't know yet where it's going to be relocated. We don't know if they'll be permanent or temporary. Obviously, if permanent, then they'll have to do permanent maintenance on it, like water bars, and things like that, switchbacks, things like that make it like a permanent trail. The mileage may change. Of course, the mileage changes every year. Not a big deal there, but the mileage probably will change. And like I said, you probably going to have to do some road walks. Now, just understand that if there's a closed section and you can't road walk around it, it is official closure on this section, then just like now, the ATC is going to still allow you to claim to be a thru hiker, and they will award you your thru hiker award if you do not go through that section, and if it is a closed section and you don't have a choice, just like if it was a fire and they had that section closed and you couldn't go around it, the same deal there. You may have some major bridges out that are actually roadway bridges that were road walks. So the Chestoa Bridge up in Irwin is gone. It is now sitting over on the bank. So that where you used to come out of the woods right there at Uncle Johnny's in Irwin, and after you did your thing at Uncle Johnny's, you would walk across the Nolichucky on the Chestoa Bridge and then continue on into the woods over there at a campground and across the railroad tracks. So that campground's gone, and the bridge there at Uncle Johnny's is gone, and they don't know when they're going to get that up. Now, I was up at Uncle Johnny's, talked to Thru, who's the caretaker up there and been a caretaker for years, and Thru indicated to me that the railroad wants that bridge put back up so they can utilize it. And typically when the railroad wants something, then it happens sooner rather than later. So we'll see what happens up there. But in the meantime, what you're probably going to have to do is a road walk. So there is a bridge about 1.5 miles downstream from Uncle Johnny's that you can walk to, cross over that, and then walk back up the other side of the river and get back up to the other side of where the Chestoa Bridge is. You'll be able to walk that. Thru also indicated to me that they will be shuttling people around that, so that would be a closure, obviously, across the bridge. They may make it as a road walk and part of the official trail, but however, Thru indicated that if it's not, then they will be shuttling people. Don't know if there's going to be a cost to that. I assume so, because they run Uncle Johnny's, while it is for the hiker community there, it is a business. So they would certainly be, I certainly expect them to charge a fee, a small fee to get people around that closure right there. Some of the places that you intend on staying may be gone. Some of those places may be closed, and some of those, and I'm talking about hostels now, some of those hostels may have reduced capacity. So Uncle Johnny's lost a couple cabins there. Uncle Johnny plans to come back bigger and better. They may even be building that section there where the store was. They're going to be tearing that down. They may even, though, be coming back with a 2-story section there. So we'll see what happens with that. And I've got an interview coming up that I did with Thru there, the caretaker, and that'll shed a little more light on what's going on with Uncle Johnny's. But Uncle Johnny's plans to be back up and running for 2025. So we'll talk about a couple others coming up here in just a minute, but just understand that some places going to be gone. Trail towns and their services may not be the same, so the outfitters got hit hard. They may not have as much gear. Some of the outfitters, like in Hot Springs, The outfitters there moved up the street because where they were was completely flooded out, and it was next to the creek there, as it were. And they decided they needed to move upstream. They probably had some structural damage there as well. So they have moved, but their inventory may not be as much as it has before because most of their inventory got damaged. There's going to be some places in Hot Springs that are probably still working on being repaired. So if you saw my Hot Springs video that I did about Hot Springs coming back, and where I interviewed Abby, the mayor, I also interviewed business owners there of Vinyl Pies Pizza. They indicated they were going to be ready in December. So that's going to be awesome to see them coming back. There is a tavern across the street that had the foundation was tore out from underneath it in a corner. They were working on repairing that while I was there. And then directly across the street from Vinyl Pies, there was another structure. I thought that was another bar. There was a lot of rooms there, but it was built on a slab, and the whole slab had been washed out and then fallen about 4 feet. So not sure what they're going to do with that, since that was actually originally built on top of fill. So we'll see what happens with that. But some of these trail towns also probably have to scale back because their revenue is gone right now. Their revenue is gone through the fall, which is biggest parts of the year in some cases for them. I know the trailer told me that was a huge time of year for them in the fall, and they don't have that revenue now because, one, the ATC told everybody to stay off the trail when there was plenty of, like down in Georgia, when there was places for the trail to be open. And so, unfortunately, they have lost that revenue when they really didn't need to lose that revenue. And so that may require them to have to scale back their services just because they don't have the funds to build back up from what they normally would from the winter. So some things that are going on that are not because of Hurricane Helene. So let's talk about a few hostels in particular that we know have got some issues and going to have reduced capacity or may not be there. So some hostels that closed, not because of Hurricane Helene, but closed or changed the way they do things, is the Rabbit Hole Hostel there at Shady Valley. They closed. They are not going to be around. Chicken Sunsets, they used to be a hostel in that they would keep only 4 people or only lodge 4 people at a time. They would fix them breakfast and stuff for them. And they have changed their format to where now they are just renting out the entire basement section of their home to people. So they're no longer a hostel per se. They're more like an Airbnb. And I don't think they are doing meals, particularly breakfasts, like they were before. Then around the Bend Hostel, they have also changed, and they are also now more of an Airbnb, and they may have actually closed. I saw where they sold their VW camper van that they had out there, which was a classic. And so that kind of tells me if they are doing that they may be closed completely. And I also was under the impression that they had it up for sale. Laughing Heart Hostel was sold to a new owner, and the new owners had closed it down for the season, and they were going to completely redo the hostel section of it. And then the hurricane hit, and now that has been put on hold. When I was up in Hot Springs, I talked to the caretaker, and they had not actually started yet. So they hadn't started the demo. And I asked her, I said, well, so if they hadn't started demo, could they not open up as is for one more season? It was good enough last year in the state that it was. Could just not be good enough now. She indicated that that was not their plans and that they wanted to do it right. So that they may not be open for the 2025, and the mayor is very concerned about that, and she voiced that to me as well. She didn't think they're going to be open for 2025 because all the contractors are out fixing stuff now. So if they're not going to be open for 2025, that's probably about 30 or 40, depending on if they let tents around the area, around the hostel. that's a lot of capacity that has been reduced in Hot Springs. And so the mayor's very concerned about where all of those hikers are going to go. So Laughing Heart is probably not going to be open for next year. Damascus got hit really hard with the flood. I mean, they had flooding right downtown that went into the outfitters and went into several of the hostels. And so we've got Dancing Bear there. Dancing Bear lost several cabins, and because of that, they've had to demolish those, and they are no longer pet friendly because now they just have the house, and my understanding is the house has cats in it. So they were cat friendly, but most people don't hike with a cat. If they're hiking with their pet, they're hiking with a dog. Although I have seen some people hike with a cat before, but not too many. Most of them, by and large, are dogs. So they are no longer dog friendly there, and their capacity has been reduced. Lady Di, she had her hostel up for sale, and my understanding was she was not going to do it this year, but she decided she'd take it off the market and would reopen her hostel, although she has indicated to me that she is going to have a reduced capacity as well. And then we got some shelters that were also already going to be closed, not because of Helene. They were just going to be closed, and that's the Roan High Knob shelter was going to be closed in the Roan Highlands. And it was going to be closed because it was an old caretaker log cabin, one of the few four-sided with a door shelters on the AT. And they were having to close it because the bottom set of logs had rotted out. So it had been there since the CCP had built it, and back when there was actually a tower there for the Forest Service for the fire spotters. And the cabin, the bottom logs are rotten, and so they are having to tear out the floor and jack it up and put some new logs up underneath it. So it was already going to be closed, and at this point they have just stabilized it, or they are working on stabilizing it for the winter, and then anticipating coming back in the spring and continuing to repair it and hopefully get it repaired sometime in 2025. So that's their goal for that. Of course, we have Laurel Falls shelter that burned pretty much to the ground. There's not much left of the foundation, maybe the sidewalls and the back walls, but the roof and all that and the deck, all that's gone. So they have gone up there, and the maintainers have, and stabilized the foundation, and anticipating coming back in the spring and repairing that and hopefully putting it back together. So some shelters that did take hits from the hurricane that came through. We've got Vanderventer in there. That's just trail south of Shady Valley. It's up there on the overlooks the Watauga Lake, and it is one of the prettiest views of any shelter on the trail, although it's haunted, and I got haunted there. And anyway, so my understanding is it took a hit with a tree on the roof. I don't think it was bad. I don't have any pictures of that, but my understanding was it took a hit. Then the Moreland Gap shelter there, Nobo Mile 414, it took a hit. It tore off the front of the shelter and destroyed the picnic table. A tree did coming down, and the hikers that were in it actually sent that to me and sent this picture to me. That occurred while they were inside of it. We had a tree that hit the Trempany shelter, so that's been damaged by trees. And the Saunders shelter, not sure if it was damaged, but there are so many trees down around it, you can't even see it in this picture. So it undoubtedly has got to have some type of damage, just don't know how bad that is. So one thing around the campsites that I can't emphasize enough is because of the trees that have been, messed up around there and falling down. When a tree goes down in the woods, it damages other trees around it. And so you're going to have to be mindful of dead men, or otherwise known as hangmen, that are up branches, large branches that are like some of them the size of a tree, that are hung up in the canopies of other trees, and eventually they will come down. As they rot or just from high winds, they'll come down. So you got to look up and see, and you've always had to do that, but but now for the foreseeable future, I mean, years from now, you're going to have to look up and see what that is. You're also going to have to look at, when you go to campsites and even shelter sites, look at weakened trees. I don't know if they're going to come in and clear cut around shelter sites. I doubt it, but trees have been weakened. They've been half rolled over, so that part of the root ball may come up and you get high winds. They could just topple the rest of the way. So you're going to have to look out for that at shelters, or even shelter sites where you're putting up a tent. That shelter's probably not going to protect you much more. Well, your tent's not going to protect you at all, and the shelter's probably not going to protect you much more than that. And then there's going to be significant wood litter for years to come on the forest floor. And by wood litter, I mean fuel for fires. And so you can expect there to be more wildfires for years to come. That means more trail closures. That means more damage in the woods. So, and then, reroutes for you or shuttling around. So that is something that's going to happen for years. And right now up in Lehigh Gap up in Pennsylvania, we've got a huge fire going on that the last I checked was not contained. It's got the trail closed down up there. So that is a likelihood of something that can happen down here as well. So the ATC has confirmed to me that the AT is not going to be removed either temporarily or permanently around trail towns. So particularly Damascus and Irwin and Hot Springs. So they are still going to go through the middle of town there. It doesn't go through the middle of Irwin, but it does in Hot Springs and Damascus. So they are still going to go through there. They are not rerouting permanently or temporarily around that. They may have to move it onto some hard surface roads sooner than you typically would coming into Damascus or Hot Springs now to get around. However, and they are definitely still going through these, and I didn't even know that they were considering that as an option. So glad to hear that that is not an option at this point. What they are attempting to do is try to make it as a continuous footpath as possible. Some of it may have to be rerouted, temporarily located, but they're going to try their best to do that. Now, there is an AT resiliency fund that they have started back when we had the hurricane. Apparently, there's been a lot of people that have given to that. I have asked them how they plan on distributing that money. It's supposed to just be used for areas affected by the hurricane, but how much of that is going to administrative costs? Because as we know, the ATC is not an all volunteer organization. The trail maintainer clubs are, but the ATC itself is an administrative bureaucratic behemoth. And so they got a lot of mouths to feed over there. So how much of that resiliency fund is going to feed those mouths, and how much is actually going out to the trail, and how is it going to be dispersed? Is it going to be dispersed to the trail maintainers, which the clubs, which I'm assuming it will be? Is it going to go to the National Forest Service and let them divvy it up? How is that going to happen? Because there's a partnership there between the ATC, the National Park Service, the National Forest Service, the Trail Maintainer Club. So how is that money going to be divvied up? And is it going to go to the worst hit? Is it going to go to the trail clubs that have the longest sections? Those are questions that I've asked, and I have been told that has been elevated to the next level beyond the information officer. So hopefully we will be finding out what that is. But that money is there, and hopefully it's going to be used for the right reason, in the right manner in which the people that gave to it, and I'm sure there have been corporations that have given to it as well. So just know right now that you are going to be hiking in 25. There may be the only forest right now that's actually closed is the Pisgah National Forest. So it occurred to me as I was putting this together that, I don't remember there being any rule in the national forests that says you have to actually hike a trail, says you can't actually bushwhack out there. So That being said, the Cherokee and Jefferson and George Washington, and there actually is one portion of the Pisgah that's open right now, but the part that's got the AT going through, it's not. But there's not a rule that I'm aware of says you got to stay on a footpath. I'm pretty sure you can bushwhack anywhere you want to in there. And so given that, there are going to be sections that are not hikeable right now, but there are going to be sections that are. And so bushwhack around those sections that aren't. I have been told that by trail angels out there that and shuttle drivers that there have been hikers that have been getting through, and not saying you should do that through a closed area, but there are hikers that have been getting around unhikeable areas by bushwhacking. If you are going to even think about doing that, you need to bone up on your map reading and compass skills, and definitely far out. But your map reading and compass, because a compass doesn't require it to be recharged. A compass doesn't require GPS or any technology or anything like that, and neither does a map. So if you're even thinking about getting out there on the trail and trying to bushwhack somewhere, you dang well better know your map and compass skills, and you better have them on hand. Because if you don't, you're going to become a statistic, and you're going to put other people's lives at risk out there having to come find you. So if you don't know how to do a map and compass, then don't hike a section of the trail that's unhikeable. So main thing is out there, though, I want you to stay safe. I want you to be aware, keep your head on the swivel, look out for those widowmakers out there. Have a good time in 2025. You're going to be out there hiking. I can't wait to see what's going on with everybody. Can't wait to get your updates. And I can't wait to see you folks going through town and getting some money spent back in these towns with these service providers that support the hiker community through their services that they do for us, shuttle drivers and hostel owners and outfitters and all those types of people out there on the trail. So looking forward to helping them get back in shape, and really looking forward to seeing through hikers and section hikers and people just out there enjoying God's creation on the Appalachian Trail. That's all I got for today. Appreciate you, and we'll see you out there.